Okay. So I'm Jamie Bolden. I work in the Center for Career and Professional Development. I'm our director, and I'm excited to welcome you guys to the You Majored in What panel. This is part of our National Career Development Week programming, sponsored by the Center for Career and Professional Development. And so we've got 4 SFA alums here who are excited to tell you guys their story. They've all had kind of interesting paths to the current positions that they have now, all centered around this idea of, you majored in what? When when people ask what you do and how did you get started, sometimes those are the most interesting stories, where maybe you graduated from college with one major but have ended up working in a field that is very different than what you thought you would be doing. And so our 4 speakers today all have those kinds of stories to share with you guys. So I'm going to ask our speakers to introduce themselves and tell us about their current position. Zach, we're going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what your role is now.
Hi, I'm Zach Hales. I graduated in 2011 with a Bachelor of Science in Political Science. I am currently the Vice President of Sales for KAI Pavement Management, Kansas Asphalt. I run the division down here in the Dallas office. Thoroughly love my time at SFA and Max and Jax.
Joey, will you go next and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Joey Moore. I am an attorney, a shareholder in the law firm of Walsh, Gagas, Trevino, Russo, and Kyle in Austin, Texas. I'm in our Austin office. We have 6 locations. And I graduated SFA in 1996, maybe before some of you guys were born. And I also enjoyed my time there. But I guess we'll get to that, like how we got where we were. That's what I'm doing now.
Christiana, what about you?
Yeah, so hello everyone. I am Christiana Fasola. I graduated in 2014 and I am currently a functional analyst at Cisco Corporation.
Okay, and then Randall.
My name's Randy Bass, and I graduated from Stephen F. in 1999, and I am currently a SRO for Conroe Independent School District at Stewart Elementary.
Okay, so the first question that I have for you guys is to tell us what your major was at SFA and how a degree in that field has helped you to kind of navigate the different stages of your career. And Christiana, I'd like for you to go first.
Yeah, for sure. So I majored in psychology and minored in business. And my job now is in technology. So a lot of people always ask me, how did you get here? What did you do to get here? And a lot of it is one part of the education that I received at SFA with all of the psychology classes that I took and all of the math courses that I took, as well as some of the initiative that I took outside of the classroom. So the way that I got here through my major is a lot of the work that I do interact with people, whether it be in a technology way, developing things that would be more user-friendly, or writing communications or dealing with change management that the organization may be going through, using some of the psychology practices and public speaking and a lot of the business courses that I did take at SFA.
Okay. Randy, what about you? What was your major at SFA and how do you feel like that degree has helped you to navigate your career?
Well, my major was radio, TV, communications, and I had a double major in geography. And my main goal was to be a meteorologist on TV. And basically, the communications degree, I got into police work at age 37, and the communications degree really helped me with communication, communicating with people, interacting with people. Being a better public speaker. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Zach, what about you? What was your major in and how do you feel like that has assisted you in kind of navigating your career so far?
So I spent my time in the Ferguson building, liberal arts. I was a political science major. I would like to say that the major itself really did help as far as, giving you basic timelines and responsibility and understanding. But I think the faculty and staff at SFA, especially in the government department of political science, really helped me become a better person in life and really a better employee. I learned, patience, understanding, and grace from them.
Okay, and Joey, what about you?
My degree was environmental science with a geology emphasis, which is a long way from being a school lawyer. That's what I do. I represent public schools. So on a day-to-day basis, I would say I don't really use my degree field that much in what I'm doing, but what my degree allowed me to do is I went from SFA to teaching, and taught a year before I went to law school, which eventually led me to school law, which as a teacher, I have an experience and an understanding of what it's like to work in schools, to either be an educator or to understand what schools do. And so I did take my degree and taught science at my hometown for a year before I went further. I will say that I had a plan of being an environmental lawyer. But I didn't really enjoy that field. And so I was able to use my education background to help me find my way to education law.
Okay. So the idea behind this panel is this idea of you majored in what? And, so the understanding that we select a major, we select a degree path with generally kind of an idea in mind of what we want to do with that. And a lot of us, think, okay, so I'm gonna major in this, and then my path is going to be set. But I think that what a lot of us who've worked for a while have learned is just that life has a funny habit of getting in the way of our plans, and just things happen within there. And so what I'd like to ask y'all next, and anyone who wants to can kind of take this, is, so how do you respond when maybe people are surprised to hear what your undergraduate degree was in, when they know what you do now and they know what your major was in college? So what's your response to that? And then also, what are some skills that you gained from that major and from your time at SFA that you feel have contributed to your success within your current field?
I'll go ahead and take it first. So for the first part, my initial answer to people when they typically ask is that my major in psychology, or my undergraduate degree, gave me the baseline in order to excel in the next phase of my life. So I took a lot of different courses, and my minor was business, so it allowed me to kind of get a good feel of both psychology as well as business regarding whatever aspect it is that I took it with. Initially, I wanted to be a psychiatrist. So I knew that after a while, I knew I would be burnt out. So I knew that was not a career option that would be sustainable for me in the long run. So taking those courses and taking all of the classes that I took in my psychology courses, as well as business and math classes, gave me that baseline that I was able to develop certain skills, such as planning, interacting with other folks, communication, being a strategic thinker, critical thinking, as well as just the way that you are able to strategize different things, especially with joining organizations outside of the classroom where you were able to plan an event from start to finish. So using all of those things have gotten me to where I am, and I've been able to leverage a lot of that past experience in my undergraduate career within what I'm doing now.
Okay. Zach, what about you? So how do you respond when people are maybe surprised at what you majored in? And then what are some skills that you feel like you gained from your major that have helped you to get to where you are?
People are always confused. They're like, why aren't you a lawyer? And I always say, well, I got married young, and I was a terrible student at first. And so I wasn't qualified to get into law school. I think that I did learn from the program a way to talk to people, to understand that different, I was an international poly. I wanted to do international law, And so I was able to understand that we're not all the same and to really how to work with other people. And I really credit the SFA and the political science department. Most definitely, I'd like to give a shout out to Dr. Gladys and Dr. Collier, may you rest in peace, and Dr. Harrelson Stevens. The three of them really kind of molded me into a straight shooter.
Randy, what about you?
I've done several different things since graduating from SFA. I owned a mortgage company for 7 years. Got out of that right before the bust because of a family illness, and then I went into I moved back home and got into law enforcement by accident, thanks to the sheriff of Walker County that I graduated high school with. And so I've had this question a lot, and basically when I get asked the question, how is the degree in that field, or what was your major? And I basically tell them, hey, you want a weather forecast? I'll be glad to give you one. But I get that a lot. I get that a lot here in the here at the school where I work in the at the police department. But I will say, I'll go along with what Zach said. I had a professor, Dr. McDonald, in the geography program, and he really pushed me to be who I am today. And he gave me a lot of good things that have helped me, and that I reflect on, that I've reflected on and constantly reflect on since I graduated. And so I'm thankful for SFA as well.
Joey, what about you?
You know, in the legal field, you see that a lot. Like people have, maybe you're not directly connected. You know, some people do start out in political science, or they take criminal justice courses because they want to be a prosecutor or a defense attorney. But a lot of people go and get a degree and then decide they want to go into a professional school like law school, because there's not a prerequisite, much like medical school, where you need to have a lot of a lot of prerequisites to get in. So you see that, I think, more commonly. I've known people who've had philosophy degrees or degrees in languages or business, or just all kinds of things. So, I mean, sometimes people are surprised that I have such a technical background in a science degree. So when they say, what, like, what are you doing here? I just usually tell them that I thought that I was going to do environmental law, but it was just terribly boring and I didn't enjoy it. And so I had to regroup after I clerked in environmental law. I thought, well, I can't live my life doing this, kind of like Christiana was saying, that wasn't going to be a sustainable career path. I had to regroup, and that was my second year of law school, to say, well, I've got this whole degree in science and I'm not going to use it now. So what am I going to do? You just kind of pivot. You pivot and you find other things that you enjoy. I don't feel like any education is ever wasted. And I think for me particularly, a science background, going through the undergraduate courses of science and lab work, you have to be very analytical. You have to be detail oriented. You have to focus on things like your labs. And then there's a lot of things you have to be pretty precise about. And that does translate into the law, that does translate into representing clients, that does translate into making sure you're prepared for court or prepared for a case. So I think my perspective is that a well-rounded student who takes a skill set from whatever field they're in can translate that into a number of different fields usually.
So I want to touch on that point. And so for the panelists, this is not on your list of questions, so I'm going to spring it on you. So I want to ask a question about that idea of having to pivot. So within my own career, I've had to do that. I have a degree from SFA. I took a job after college that was very aligned with that degree. And I went, yeah, this is not what I want to do. And it was a very unsettling time where I went, this is what I had planned to do. This was plan A. And so plan A is not going to sustain me. I was like, I'm going to burn out on this. I don't enjoy it. It's not a good fit. So, and I had to figure out what to do next. And so I want to ask about if y'all have had, a point like that in your career, and kind of how you handled it, and kind of what your approach was to that when maybe you figured out that plan A was not going to be the plan. How did you respond to that? How did you pivot? For those of us who love Friends, pivot. Yeah, we got pivot. How did y'all pivot, if that has been something that has happened to y'all? Any of y'all are welcome to tackle that.
Well, since it was my pivot, like I exactly had to do that. I just really sat down and regrouped. I won't say I had a big, I think my career path has been just really serendipitous in that I've landed into places that I've liked. And I guess maybe I think of it positively that way, but I know that when I'm places I don't like, I move out of them. So I haven't been in one exact place. So when I realized in my second year of law school, I had one more year left, that this wasn't going to work. I had my parents, they were like, what? At least I did stay in my graduate program. And of course I was paying for that on my own. So they were like, well, whatever you need to do, but you're gonna have to pay for this. So you better figure it out. To me, it was finding something that I enjoyed, was important, right? I wanted to use my skill set, but I knew I had to do something that was fulfilling to me, and that administrative law was not. So that's what I did. I would find things that I was going to try and I was going to see. And if I didn't like it, I was prepared to move. And I think that is important. Even in my last transition of working for this law firm that I work for now, prior to representing public school districts, I represented individuals. And I had done that for 12 years, and that became pretty emotionally draining when you're representing individuals. So I switched to represent the entities, and I thought, I'll do this for 2 years. I'll do this for 2 years, and if I don't like it, I'll go do something else. And I ended up loving it. Like I told my firm, I found my forever home. So I think that is something, this is long-winded and I'll be quiet, but I think that is something to be comfortable with. Like if you're not happy, be comfortable with making a change, and you might be pleasantly surprised that something you never planned to be long-term may end up be something that you are surprisingly happy with.
I'd like to bounce off Joey there. I think my career has been a series of pivots. I graduated, I took the first job I could find at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I rent through, with the plan of, hey, I'm going to work my way up the ladder here. I became a branch manager and realized how much I hated washing cars and ties. But I pivoted and I went into insurance. I worked for Liberty Mutual Insurance. I ended as an analyst there. I got bored and I got offered a startup position at a new roofing company. I pivoted, went there, and really and kind of grew a sales department, learned how to cut my teeth. And then, here I am now. I got recruited off LinkedIn. And I can say right now, I'm finishing up my MBA. I'm getting ready to pivot out of here as well. I'm not that I'm unhappy, but I'm looking for the next step personally. I think that at least my group of generation, we're always looking, we're always trying to change. And that's kind of where I'm at professionally right now.
Randy, I'd like to ask your thoughts on this, because I know from our conversations that this has been something that you've done a few times, but you and I had talked about that your journey had there had been things, that were related to family matters, or a spouse, took a position elsewhere. And so I wonder if you would talk a little bit about kind of responding to those changes when it maybe is things that have been external to you, that it maybe wasn't that you were unhappy, but that life kind of forced you to take caused you to have to take an unexpected shift, and just kind of how you've handled those sorts of shifts in your career.
Well, first I want you to know that you don't need to be scared to pivot. I've pivoted mainly from external issues going on. I came out of college And actually, I met my wife at Stephen F. Austin, and my wife was one year younger than I, and she had to finish her degree, and she graduated a year later. And so I had to find something to do. And so I had a friend who owned a car dealership, a Chevrolet store, and he asked me if I wanted to come on and be a finance manager. So I did finance. I built this website. So I did several different things. And that when Sarah graduated, she wanted to move to Carrollton. She wanted to get away from her family. And so we moved to Carrollton, and I pivoted again, and I took a risk, and I opened a mortgage company, and owned that for almost 7 years in Carrollton. And we did really well. Well, I kind of saw the writing on the wall that the economy was going to tank due to the financial mess in 2007. And it just so happened that my mom called one day, and she said, "Hey, I want to let you know that your dad's got 6 months to live. He had leukemia for 15 years. And so I moved back to Huntsville and helped my mom out. And it just so happened I pivoted again. The sheriff of Walker County came to me, and he said, "Hey, I'm starting this new Citizens on Patrol program, and I want you to be the head of it." And I told the sheriff, "I have no desire at all to be in law enforcement, none." And he said, No, this is just a community job." And so again, I want to stress with that you have to take advantage of those little opportunities and try things. This was just a community job. And what I found was I started riding with deputies on the weekends overnight, on the overnight shift, and I caught the fever so bad I couldn't sleep. But the sheriff's office was just a little too over the top for me. It was, it's just 95% of the calls are bad. And I just couldn't do that. And so I went to the academy. I came out of the academy. I went to the sheriff's office for 2 years, and I just didn't like it. And so I pivoted again, and I went to Lone Star College in Houston, and I was there for 8 years as an officer and sergeant. And then some things went bad at I wouldn't say they went bad, just some management shifts. And so I pivoted again and went to Conroe ISD, and law enforcement has been the best job that I've ever had. And I came out of Stephen F. Austin with the intent of being a weatherman on TV. So anyway, just don't be afraid to pivot, and have courage when you pivot. You're going to have things that come in your life that illnesses, spouse issues, or whatever, that are going to cause you to pivot, and don't fear it. I mean, just take the people that you know and run with it. In my opinion, that's the best thing to do. And you'll be surprised how many people you meet if you volunteer for organizations and stuff like that, who can lead you to your next home.
I want to ask right now too, and encourage the students who are watching, if y'all do have any questions for the panelists or any follow-ups or anything like that, please feel free to drop those into the chat on Zoom, and we will get those asked for you guys. What has been the thing that has been the most surprising to you so far about your career path? What's been the thing that you would say has been the most unexpected part of that? Cristiano, I want to start out with you. Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
Sorry. The most interesting thing for me is the amount of career opportunities I have now, now that I have not only pigeoned myself into the psychology realm. So I've had a lot of different opportunities within my current organization and outside, where I constantly have people reaching out to me saying, hey, they're looking for they're looking for an analyst, or they're looking for a PM at their current organization, but I actually love my job, so I'm staying here. However, within my current role that I'm in, I actually got promoted into this role last year. So initially I started with the organization in a different role, and they saw that I had a lot of a different skill set, and they thought that I would be able to kind of excel more in this role. And it's actually great that it pays a lot more too. So having that opportunity and having that, I guess, the different abilities and what you've acquired over the years to be able to expand your network and expand the different things that you can do is I think, something very important, and you have to be open to the adaptation as things become more flexible within your organization.
Joey, what about you? What's been the most surprising thing about your career journey?
I guess I would say it is surprising to me when I look back on it that I had such a technical start. You know, what are you going to do with a science degree, geology science degree, that I've been able to take that start to something that really is unrelated? Like I said, from a day-to-day standpoint, I don't talk about rocks, and I don't talk about science, and I enjoyed that. I have a real kind of nerdy background, and I really enjoyed that science. My dad's a science teacher. I mean, I grew up loving science. But to me, in hindsight, it seems interesting to me and surprising that even my own path is so divergent from where I started. I can see how every turn led me to where I was, but it is a circuitous path for sure. So that's to me surprising, even when I hear myself say I have an environmental science degree. In fact, I had a meeting today with my firm and told them I was doing this, and they were like, "Oh, that's right, you have that weird degree," right? So I think that's surprising.
Well, I want to touch back a little. So going back into your time at SFA, tell us a little bit about how you were involved outside of the classroom and how you feel that experience outside the classroom has helped you in your postgraduate life. Anyone can chime in on that, but how did your kind of outside the classroom involvement affect your career?
Well, I was rather involved at my time at SFA. I was a senator, committee chair, and a Supreme Court justice for SGA. I was the vice president of Traditions Council, founding member of Traditions Council. I was the Jack Camp as a camper counselor and student director, and I was a member of Driving Jacks, and I was a refounding father of Sigma Nu. And I can say I was pretty busy and I had a lot of fun, but I can say all those experiences gave me the opportunity to build a network and connections to later on use that and become and develop a business professional network. While you're in college, the people you meet 10 years from now, they might be able to help you out or help you get a leg up. So don't lose contact. Keep in touch. I was at my best friend's wedding 2 weekends ago. Brian Coburn and I, at one point in time, were involved in pretty much everything. And it's because of that friendship I've been able to make new accounts with my current company. While I was there, I signed a $2 million contract with a mutual friend of ours. Those are the kind of things that really changed. So if I can say anything, if I'm involved on campus, what helped me was the connections I made being involved.
Christiana, what about you?
Yeah, so for me, I was also very involved. I was involved in a lot of extracurricular in terms of academia, and then I was involved with more student organizations. Like I was in the Big Event. I was also a part of ODK. I worked at the ARC. I did research within the psychology lab where we would study dogs and if they could do math. So I did a lot. I kind of made sure that I had a diverse portfolio for myself, just so I can get a good and robust experience of college, I guess. And a lot of the things that I did do, like working at the ARC, teaching other people statistics or algebra, has helped me in my current role when I'm doing any initiatives around training. So a lot of the work is you have to understand a lot of the systems that you're building or implementing and making sure that other people also understand it. So taking that TA and or tutor, I guess, learnings or skills that I got there. And then from the big event, everything that kind of goes along with making sure the big event actually happens. So a lot of that strategic planning, a lot of the like project management, as well as people management with some of the teams that are under you as a student leader. So a lot of the things that I guess associated myself with outside of the classroom has definitely helped me. And I'm not really an extroverted person, but being in those organizations and being in those situations where you do have to interact with people has definitely helped me with what I'm doing now, because I do have to interact with people quite a lot and different personalities as well. So you definitely get a whiff of that when you have a diversified list of organizations and or involvements that you're doing while in school.
Joey or Randy, what about y'all? What kinds of things were y'all involved in outside the classroom during your time at SFA?
Well, I worked a lot. I had the intent of being in the media, and so I focused all of my spare time on that. I worked at KLSB. KETK's sister station was in Nacogdoches. I ran camera and filmed commercials for them when I was in college. I ran the sideline cam for SFA athletics for the big jumbotron and the TV. Now ESPN. It wasn't that at that time. And Fredonia Hill Baptist had a TV station, Channel 21, that I worked a lot on, and I ran all the coaches shows for SFA, and filmed basketball games and football games for Fredonia Hill, and that was again prior to ESPN taking over. But I will say this, I will reiterate what they've said, and that is that the connections that you make, whether it's in the radio TV program or it's at Fredonia Hill or it's at KLSB or wherever, everywhere that you go, there's a connection to be made. And I have so many friends on Facebook and on LinkedIn that I mean, it's because of Stephen F. Austin that I've had those mortgages that I've done, or those extra mortgages that I've done, or those cars that I've put a car deal together before they've even come to the dealership, or whatever, at one time or another. So I wish I would have been a part more of the SFA experience, but as far as the organization experience, but my target really wasn't that. My target was to focus on the end goal and get into KLSB, get into the NBC network, and be on the Weather Channel one day. I mean,
I think there are, I mean, so right now there's a lot of students have to work. Like demographics tell us that, students have to work to support themselves a lot more frequently. And so I think that it's good to know that there isn't one particular path to success in there. I think students get the feeling a lot that they have to be involved in lots of student organizations and they have to have kind of this traditional college experience, and that's great for the students who do that. Obviously that has a lot of benefits, but there are a lot of students too who do have to work, and they sometimes work in fields that are outside of their major because they have to pay bills. And so I think that we try to emphasize to students a lot that they need to be doing something. They need to be doing things outside of the classroom to help to build their skill set, whether that's working part-time or doing internships or being in a dozen different student organizations. Zach, I'm looking at you. but I think that it's important to know that, they need to be gaining those skills both inside and outside the classroom, because they never know how they're going to be utilized one day. I want to ask if there are any questions right now before we move on to our next section.
I have a question posed to anyone on the panel, but I wonder if anyone felt inadequate with doing something career-wise that wasn't related to their major because they had a degree in something different. If that just led to any discouragement in wanting to change paths, or, you get what I'm saying. I'm curious to see if any of y'all felt that.
I can go ahead and answer that. So when I first started my job, I had a lot of work to do outside of work. So I would go to work and sit in a lot of meetings, and I was like, these people are speaking a language that I don't even understand. And something about the corporate world is a lot of different organizations like to use acronyms. So literally on my first week, I went home and studied acronyms for about a week, about 2 hours every day after work. And then there was a skills gap that I couldn't fill. So I took that extra initiative as well outside of work. On weekends, I would take like Udemy courses or any type of course that would help me kind of advance or excel or perform my job in a decent way, and in a way that it would allow me, I guess, the praise or recognition to move on into a higher role.
I'll say, going from SFA, I went to Texas Tech for law school, and Texas Tech is a fine law school. It's not Harvard. It's a Harvard of the South Plains, but but even going to a professional school, everywhere you go, everybody is posturing, right? They're all, oh, you went where? You're from where? I don't know where that is. I've never heard of that. And so I know that I've had this kind of imposter's feeling, syndrome of, I'm maybe worried about, I wasn't, supposed to be there. And the other thing I had told Jamie was the most audacious thing I could think of was going to becoming a professional school, like a degree after college. My parents were educators and they were educated, but I didn't know anyone who was a lawyer. I'd never met a personal doctor besides my own doctor. I'm from a very rural community where, going to college, many people don't even do that. So to me, going into law school, there were a lot of posturing and a lot of, oh, you weren't on your school's debate team. Like, oh, what are you doing here? You can't be a lawyer here. And you just have to trust yourself, your skill set. And I ended up that year being in the top like 5% of my class with people who wouldn't let me be in their study groups. Like it was a scene out of like Elle Woods, like, we're full, you can't be here. You can't join us. You're not the right type. You're too loud. You talk too much, whatever it is. And you just have to know yourself, right? And you have to say that what people think of me is not my concern. It's what I think of me and what I can do. So yeah, I would say that at any point in changing my career, I have been like, I hope I know what I'm doing, but I'll fake it till I make it. So
I'm definitely going to agree with Joey on that, because I have felt inadequate so many times. I mean, going into the mortgage business and never had and had never owned a business before. I did it because it was cool and because I thought I could make $1 million. That's why I did it. And I felt inadequate for the first 6 months or maybe even a year. I learned some hard lessons in the mortgage business. And then going into police work. I mean, I felt inadequate about that as well. But what I always tell these kids that I train, or these new officers that I train, is just be open and be ready to learn and open to learning something new, and you will be just fine. It's the ones that close off and think they know it all are the ones that don't make it, that don't seem to make it. And I think you can be successful at anything absolutely anything that you do, if you're open to learn and and be willing to learn. I mean,
I'm going to say one thing. Be proud. Wear purple. Axum Jacks forever. We beat Duke. And I have to say, I have had a lot of people throughout. It wasn't so much at first. At first everybody's just trying to grunt around. But since I've kind of elevated myself into this position I'm at now, I've had more than one person be like, "Where's that?" I'm like, "Well, we beat Duke. We're mid-major perennial. SFA is the greatest school ever, and I'm a badass." Sorry, I probably should have said that, but I am, and you are too. You got to know yourself, and you got to project the confidence. Fake it till you make it. Yeah, you're going to feel inadequate, but don't let the haters see it. Be strong.
I think something I might add to that is that I think that the idea of having kind of mentors or sponsors, people, they call it lots of different things. In my experience of having kind of moved around a little bit within my career, we'll say the thing that has helped me to overcome the worry of whether I can do it is that other people have seen potential in me and pushed me to do things outside of my comfort zone. I have been offered positions where I've gone, I don't have any experience in that. Like, what do you mean you think I would be good at it? And they say, you have a core skill set that we think can be good. You can learn what you need to be successful in it. But, they really encouraged me to push outside of my comfort zone and to strive for things that I felt inadequate going for. Like, I was like, oh, they're not gonna want me for that. I'm not qualified for that. And, you have to try. Like, we have a saying in our office of, for students, when they're considering applying for jobs and they don't meet all of the criteria, we tell the students, let them be the ones to tell you no. Like, if you don't go for the opportunity, you'll never get it. Like, it's always going to be a no. If you try for it and you don't get it, then that, it's a bummer, but you went for it. But you're never going to get a yes unless you try for it. And sometimes that means, striving for things that you're not sure that you can get, or you can't do 100% of the things on the job description. That's okay. They're not always. Tierney, did you have a follow up? You told me.
Well, yes. Each of you kind of alluded some to imposter syndrome, how it was easy to feel like you kind of don't belong. So you have to fake it till you make it. And I think that's something that's still very prevalent on just college campuses. So let alone graduating and going into the workplace, but just sometimes even being in school, it's like, why am I here? Even especially popular within first generation students, which some of you might have been. So I agree that some of y'all already kind of offered advice on what you might say to people with that imposter syndrome, just kind of fake it till you make it. But I also wonder if anyone maybe made connections within their first couple weeks or months with other colleagues, or maybe when you transitioned to law school, if you made connections with certain people that helped make it easier to kind of stay in that field, even if you felt like you didn't belong. Kind of not making it personal, but if you just made connections, worked on your network a little bit, and that made it easier.
I've had several experiences like that, especially in law enforcement. I had a captain that really took me by the hand, and when I got to Lone Star College, he was on his third retirement, and he just walked me through it. He's the reason I made sergeant. He had so much to do with my career, and those connections are so important. And you'll find them. You'll find them if you're open to them. I promise you will.
I can say where I'm currently working, I work for the former president of Guinness America, so the beer. He does this as like a side gig. This is just a second career for fun, and it's my livelihood. It's just fun time. But I can say he has dragged me along and really elevated me to the next level. You get lucky sometimes. You find somebody, and for the longest time, I would have told you no, Tierney. I would have said, nah, I did it all on my own, on my back. But no, I can say that this gentleman I work for has really taken me under his wing and has helped me get to where I'm going.
I think you find a lot of that going right when you're going into the professional world. As for me, since this is my first job out of college, a lot of my team members or the other teams that I've collaborated with, they're like, "Oh, wow!" You oftentimes they think that I'm an intern since I still look relatively young and I'm short. And they're like, "Oh, like, do you know about this? Do you know about that?" So just having that drive that you also want to learn from them kind of attracts people to you. So just making sure that you're sponge when you go out there in the real world, and you're looking for those opportunities to collaborate with people outside, within your direct team and outside of your team, because a lot of that, it's like, let's say for instance I'm getting a little bored in my current position, I can reach out to a team member that I see has an opening on their team and say, "Hey, I looked at the job description for this role on your team. I think that I could fill it." And having those connections can get you along the way.
Well, so I'd like to know what kind of advice you guys have for the students who are on the call today. So they may be attending for various reasons. They may be here for course credit or things like that. Y'all are all students, so they may be here for class credit, but I'm guessing that some of them may be thinking about changing their majors or not know what they want to major in, or getting close to graduation and they don't know what they're going to do. And so I'm curious what advice you guys would have for them, knowing that they're freshmen through graduate students. What kind of advice do y'all have for these students kind of within this area of career and majors?
I'll take a stab at it. So one of the things that I would advise the students to do is seek internships. So internships is kind of like a pre-job. So when I was in college, I had a couple of different internships where I was able to kind of get a little taste of these a certain industry or things that I had researched or thought that I would like. You can reach out, and there's a little less commitment when you intern somewhere, because you don't have to work there permanently. Sometimes they will offer you a permanent position when you do graduate, but just take that initiative to get a few internships to kind of learn a little bit more about how the work setting is, if you'll actually like this job, rather than graduating, getting into the job and you're like, "I completely hate this." So taking that initiative to either connect with people that you can shadow them at their job or learn a little bit more information and internship. And another thing that I did was I would look up people on LinkedIn before I graduated, for job roles that I would want to be in. And I had a list of 10 questions that I would ask every single person on these calls, that would give me a little bit more insight on that specific role, or would give me the skills and knowledge that I needed to develop outside of the classroom if I hadn't developed it already. And just taking that extra initiative while you're connecting with those people and you're asking them questions, you're also building a connection that could possibly get you an opportunity in your first role or a role in the future.
I would just say, don't look for perfect right out of the gate. Okay. I'm, I love my job right now, but it's a job and I expect to get paid for it. Like, I'm not doing it for free. Right. And so, I hope you all get the perfect job, and there's all these platitudes about, do what you love and you'll never be work and all that stuff. That's great. But also be prepared to go in and work somewhere, and it may not be your dream job, right? I'm almost 25 years out of school, and I'm pretty happy where I am, and I think this may be my forever professional home until I retire. But I'm also a lot older than all y'all, so I would say that be prepared that not every job is perfect. I have teenage daughters, and when I don't want some, I'm happy where I am because I've worked this long to get to a place and have that capability to kind of demand that of where I am in my career. So I would encourage you to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, be comfortable with working, be comfortable with transitioning, like Randall said, and Zach said, and Christiana, be comfortable with making change if it doesn't work out for you, but also know that not every job is going to be like some dream TV job you see, and just be prepared for that. But no job is wasted. No job is wasted, even the ones you don't like, because at the very least, you find out what you don't like, and you find out how to transition out of that. So, even if it's, this isn't for me, you're going to be able to use that knowledge and go somewhere else. But be ready to, kind of see the pros and cons of something.
I'd have to agree totally with what Joey said. I think she hit the nail on the head, and Christiana too. I really, really loved what she said. I just think you just have to try something new and not be afraid to do it. And then whenever you get in there, put forth as much effort as you can, go the extra mile, work the extra hours, do everything that it takes, and then be ready, be flexible in the event you have to move. And I agree so much with what Joey said. I mean, every job is worth something. And I learned so much as a finance manager at a car dealership. And I learned so much owning a mortgage company. And I learned so much and had so many eye-opening experiences as a police officer. And all three of those will lead me to the next thing that I do. I don't have any desire to do anything else. I'm at a K-6 school now, and I love these kids. And it's the best job that I've ever had. But at some point, something else is going to come along, or a promotion is going to come along, and I'm flexible with that. But work hard, be positive, and just do everything you can to be a success where you are. And then when the time comes, if you don't like your job or whatever, take a step and move on, and have faith that that's going to work out and that it's going to be a good move for you.
Work is temporary, life is permanent. I can say this: enjoy your time. For my advice, enjoy your time at SFA. If you're there, and take the most of the opportunities, develop relationships. I know I've brought that up once before. I can't emphasize that enough. And take advantage of being a student. It's not every day that you get to sit back and learn. So, and learning on the easy way, not the hard way, by making mistakes. But make mistakes. Enjoy your time there. Axum Jacks.
Well, we very much appreciate our panelists' time. We're really excited to have you guys, and for the students to get to hear from people who have been in their shoes, who have walked these halls, who have had just kind of interesting career journeys, and who've been willing to share and willing to talk to our students about it. So we very much appreciate y'all's time and presence here today. So I want to say thank you. I will say for the students, if this panel and attending this session has kind of you want to do some research into what maybe you can do with your major, kind of what those options are, know that the Center for Career and Professional Development is here to help with that. Y'all can come in for career coaching appointments. We do an appointment called Career and Industry Exploration that may be of interest, where we talk about this kind of, what can I do with this major question? For when I talked to someone the other day who was a political science student, and he said, well, I don't want to work for a political campaign, so I need to know what else I can do. And I said, okay, let's talk about the 57 other things you could do with, and sales was one of the things we talked about, because he had knocked on doors, as part of his job. And so he said, I'm really comfortable with people telling me no. And I said, well, have you thought about sales? And so, feel free to reach out to us if we can be helpful to you guys in any way, as y'all may be wrestling with some of these same questions that our panelists had. But that'll wrap us up. So again, thank you guys so much, Axum Jacks. And let us know if we can be helpful. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, panelists.
Bye.